Thank you, everyone. The topic of my PhD research is communication and interpersonal dynamics in virtual team meetings and apply linguistic perspective. So I will briefly talk about my research. I apologize if I can go into the details because of the time limit, but if you have any questions that you would like to ask or for further discussion, please feel free to email me. So this is the agenda. I'll first talk about the context, the background of my study, the methodology, some major findings, implications, limitations, and future research direction, and lastly, a Q&A. So first of all, about the study. There has been a development of virtual team in the past 2 decades, actually, due to globalization and technology advancement. There are many benefits of virtual work teams. So mainly for cost effectiveness, because the companies outsource their back office work in other countries, typically in developing countries, to save costs. But at the same time, they can also work without the limitations of the geographical and time boundaries, and they can also better use of expertise. There is a definition on virtual work teams. So work arrangements where team members are geographically dispersed, have limited face-to-face contact, and worked independently through the use of electronic communication media to achieve common goals. And Pauline actually almost 20 years ago already said virtual work team has become a must rather than an alternative in organizations nowadays. But because of COVID-19, we can also see a dramatic surge of the necessity of virtual work teams. Given the importance of virtual work teams, much research has been conducted actually within on this work form. However, they are mainly done in terms of business communication, human resources, organizational behavior, and the life cycle of virtual team projects, etc. Relatively little is known about the language used in virtual team communication from an applied linguistic perspective. As pointed out by some scholars, they said that the language used within virtual teams has only received very little attention, and it is surprising that only little research exists on language in virtual settings. So looking through the literature, there are some major concerns regarding virtual teams. So first of all, English might be the first language for the onshore managers, but may not be the first language for the offshore workforce. Secondly, usually virtual work teams consist of members from multiple linguistic as well as cultural backgrounds. So the multiculturalism of the team composition can also pose challenges. And thirdly, the environment of this kind of team, the virtualness of the team may also affect the interpersonal dynamics and pose new communication challenges within such teams. So these are the objectives of my research. So first, to investigate the discourse of virtual team meetings in authentic context, to interview key stakeholders about their perceptions, their experiences, and the practices in VTMs, to conduct discourse analysis analytic study using authentic VTM data to supplement existing knowledge on VTMs, and also conceptualize an analytical framework for VTMs by using Communication Accommodation Theory as a theoretical framework. And lastly, to explore the potential use of discourses, which is a visual text analytical tool to complement qualitative discourse analysis of VTM data. So I will very briefly talk about the framework that I use. Given that business meetings are highly goal and transactional oriented, team members have high motivations to achieve team goals, and it can be assumed that their motivation for communicative adjustments is high, so as to facilitate the transactional as well as relational processes, purposes of team meetings. Gaylor, Auger, and Giles propose this CAT framework as a general theory of intergroup and interpersonal communication, which highlights interpersonal as well as intergroup history, alongside with societal and cultural norms and values. This model suggests that interactions' psychological accommodation stance is constrained by immediate interrational situation norm, which are embedded within the wider socio-historical context. interacting psychological accommodation styles would then influence the communication accommodation strategies and communicative behavior in exchanges. This then lead to perception and attribution about their motivations for further exchanges. So in order to achieve the objective of the study, I pose a set of research questions. So the first one, what are the challenges faced by VTM participants, and what are the strategies adopted by them to tackle these issues? This was done through the thematic analysis of interview data. Secondly, that is the analysis of the actual VTM. To what extent do VTM participants employ CAT strategies in their meetings? And to what extent do contextual factors affect the employment of these kind of strategies? And thirdly, it's about the application of discourses. How does it complement qualitative discourses and discourse analysis of VTMs? And how are the CAT strategies visually represented on these discourses plots? Then I will talk about the methodology. I adopted multi-analytical approach. So in order to address the first set of questions, that is about the perception and experience of VTM participants, I conducted 12 semi-structured interviews with the VTM stakeholders. So the participants came from different departments of different rank and positions. And secondly, I applied the CAT theory as a theoretical as well as analytical framework to inform the discourse analysis of the authentic VTM data. And third, the use of visual analytical tool discourses in order to find out how it can complement the discourse analysis of VTM data. Since this study contained human research subjects, so I also obtained human research ethic approval from PolyU. For data collection, I mainly collected the data from two organizations. The first one is BRASIT. These are pseudonyms that I gave them. So BRASIT is a Brazilian multinational IT service and solution providers. And the second one is Ostbank, is an Australian multinational bank. I conducted site visit in BRASIT, satellite office in Manila in March 2019, and that was before the pandemic. So during the site visit, I distributed questionnaires, I did observations, I also conducted interview with the VTM stakeholders, collected some company documents, as well as shadowing and recording 2 VTMs. So after that, I came back to Hong Kong and did some analysis, initial analysis. And then there was the outbreak of COVID-19, so I could not go back to the site to collect more data. And therefore, I obtained recordings of meeting or virtual meeting data from Ostbank. So eventually I obtained 2 VTM recordings from BRASIT and 5 from Ostbank. So for the interview questions, they are actually informed by the previous literature. So the literature identifies some issues within virtual teams. Communications is one of the biggest challenges virtual team leaders face while trying to complete the task within the team. There is also a lack of information-rich non-verbal cues because they cannot see each other. So there might be misinterpretation of messages. The diverse ethnic, national, as well as organizational backgrounds may also cause misinterpretation based on biases. Also, the use of English as business lingua franca, together with cultural differences, can also cause communication problems and power struggles. And finally, the lack of social information of team members, because most of the team members, they have not actually met each other before, so they don't really have much social information about each other. And this could hinder social interaction, relationship, and trust building within the team. So the interview questions focus mainly on the challenges that they encounter in VTMs regarding language and communication, intercultural issues, as well as group dynamics. So this table is the overview of the 7 authentic virtual team meeting. As you can see, they are from different organizations. also the number of participants are different. The relationship of participants, you can also see the difference. Some are peers, some are managers, subordinates. So there could be some power issues there. And also the composition of the team of different participants. They also contain different purposes of meeting. So some are giving or receiving information, some are just planning, or some are more problem-oriented. And also the meeting topics are also very diverse. So as you can see, 2 are from the RECIT, A1, A2, and the rest are from OSBank. So for data processing, I transcribed and coded the interview data. So it was a verbatim transcription. I used the software and in vivo to code the interview transcripts, and then conducted thematic analysis using Brown class framework. And for the coding of VTM data, I use Elan to transcribe the data. And after that, I analyzed the CAT strategies and developed a coding system from previous studies, drawing from several areas of scholarship, including pragmatics, international sociolinguistics, relational practices in workplace, and also turn-taking behaviors. So pretty much, I mean, this coding system is done both inductively, but also deductively. So I will talk about some of the major findings. For research question 1A, what are the challenges faced by VTM participants? The major themes, the main themes I have identified are meeting deficiencies, that is around the meeting mechanics, the virtual environment of the meetings, the language issue, and also team diversity. And if you look at the language issues, I found that the participants, because they are from the Manila office, so most of them are Filipinos. So they are actually quite confident in terms of productive ability. However, they said that they encounter mostly receptive issues such as an accent, an intonation, idiomatic expressions, etc. And these themes presents a particular challenging environment for virtual team members. Together with the pressure to achieve team and organizational goals, the demand for the participants to perform effectively are very high. And while looking at these themes, they also reveal that some of the themes are directly related to CAT strategies, while others are more related to the context of the VTM. So for example, the issues of meeting deficiencies associated with discourse management strategies within the CAT framework. And the issues of language can be related to the interpretability strategies related to CAT framework, whereas the issue of team diversity is related to the socio-cultural context of the VTM, while the virtual environment of meetings is concerned with the immediate situational context of the VTMs. So question 1B, so that they talk about the challenges that they encounter, then what are the strategies adopted by them to tackle the VTM issues? So first of all, they are aware of the challenging environment in virtual settings. And the interview data also suggests that they the participants also take on a proactive role in overcoming difficulties. This is important because when I look at the virtual team work literature, a lot of them actually focus on the responsibility of the manager, how to lead a virtual team, how to make sure your virtual team work effectively, and not much focus were put on other participants. But then through talking to them, I can see that they also take a proactive role and also some innovative strategies to overcome the difficulties. So the second part of my study is a discourse analysis of the authentic VTM meetings. So the first part, I divided this part into 2 other sessions. So the first session is the CAT strategies employed in the 7 VTM meetings, in order to address to what extent do VTM participants employ the strategies in VTMs. And the second part of this study, discourse analysis study, is to look at the contextual factors of the 7 VTMs in order to address research question 2B, to what extent do contextual factors affect the participants' employment of CAT strategies. So I can only present the findings in the table. So for question 2A, to what extent do the participants employ CAT strategies? These are the strategies that I identify through looking at the 7 VTMs. As you can see, the VTM participants make use of a wide range of linguistic resources interchangeably and complementarily during the VTMs, so that they can deliver the messages accurately, to ensure the meetings are run smoothly, to enlet their managerial roles in some cases, and while in other cases to mitigate their managerial force for relationship building purposes, and to express positive emotion to enhance team cohesion and team trust. These goals not only match with the motives of CAT strategies used that are cognitive and affective, they also fulfill transactional and relational meeting goals. Something that is quite interesting from my analysis is that I don't see very much employment of approximation strategies. And this is in contrast to a lot of the CAT studies, especially the earlier ones, that focus specifically on speech accommodation in terms of matching syntax, matching pacing, matching dialects, accents, etc. And in order to answer question 2B, to what extent do contextual factors affect VTM participant employment of CAT strategies, I then look at each meeting individually, and then to investigate how the contextual factor of each meeting affect the different employments of CAT strategies within this meeting. And then I identified these contextual factors: meeting purpose, meeting topics, power asymmetry, language proficiency, and also managerial styles as immediate interactional situation of VTM and their correlation with the employment of strategies within the meetings. So after conducting the CAT analysis, the discourse analysis, I then propose a modified version of CAT framework, because I mean, as I stated earlier, Giles and his colleague propose CAT as a general theory, but then if you want to apply it in a specific context, you have to modify the framework. So this revised model suggests societal cultural norms and interpersonal as well as intergroup relationships serve as wider socio-cultural and socio-historical context, which can influence the participants' orientation towards other virtual team members. While meeting purpose, meeting topics, power symmetry, language proficiency, and also managerial style serve as factors in the immediate interactional situation context, which can influence the CAT strategies employed within specific VTMs. So the third part of my study is actually an additional chapter. I wanted to see how the use of discourses can complement qualitative discourse analysis of VTMs, because when I went through the literature, I saw that discourses was also used to analyze doctor-patient communication. So I want to see if that is also visible in VTM context. So this is a visual analytical tool that allows us to look at the transcripts and observe temporal structure of exchange, the turn-taking mechanisms, the level of engagements of various speakers, as well as conceptual coherence among the speakers. So it can give us a very quick look of the overall discourse pattern. So I generated plots for different meetings and talk about the engagement level and talk about the distribution of turns, etc. But I am not going into details now. So to conclude, the major findings of my study. First, VTM participants' experiences with virtual team meetings with specific foci on the challenges that they encounter, as well as their strategies to cope with the challenges. And secondly, the VTM participants' employment of CAT strategies in VTMs. So I propose a modified CAT framework for VTM settings, and I also developed a CAT strategy scoping framework and how CAT strategies are linguistically realized in that particular chapter. And third, how contextual factors influence VTM participants' choices in adopting CAT strategies. And then I will also talk about the implication, limitations, and future research directions. So implications of my study, first, practical implications. So there are challenges and strategies analyzed can be useful to practitioners. The discourse analysis of VTMs can inform the participants on how to utilize various linguistic devices to achieve transactional and also relational meeting goals. While for social implications, during the analysis, I found that ethnocentrism and prejudices may exist in global work teams. So findings of current study will be shared and discussed with the involved organization with aims to improve intergroup communication and work practices. Methodological implications, the coding scheme and the revised CAT framework that targets VTM settings can inform further studies of on VTMs. So they can directly apply the coding scheme and the framework if anyone wants to work further on VTM. And also the use of discourses to complement discourse analysis, especially when looking at discourse structures and management. A pedagogical implication. The CAT communication skills could be integrated into training workshops. So I have identified the CAT strategies used and how it can help to achieve transactional as well as relational goal. So this kind of analysis could be developed into training materials. The identification of communicative devices associated with CAT communication strategies also provide a concrete framework that can be readily applied to the study of virtual meeting discourse or even meeting discourse and implemented to training materials. So there are also some limitations when it comes to this study. So first of all, it was difficult to shadow and record a variety of VTMs in the organizations due to confidential issues. So they did not allow me to observe any meeting. So I could only observe the ones that they allowed me to observe. So I could not get a variety of different meetings. And secondly, it was difficult to administer a post-meeting interview with VTM participants whom I did not have direct contact with because they are from very multiple locations. So the ones that I had direct contact with were the ones in the Manila office, while the ones in other US offices, in Europe offices, I could not really get in touch with them. So I could not interview them. Third, self-reported interview data with potential discrepancies between reported and actual language behaviors. So what they reported, what they said in the video interview may not be what they actually do. And however, this can be compensated by doing actual discourse analysis of the VTM data for triangulation reasons. And four, VTM participants' awareness of meeting recording might have affected their actual communicative behaviors, which could affect the authentic and natural VTM exchanges because they are so aware of that they were being recorded. So finally, future research directions. A VTM corpus can be developed. I know that there are corpus for a corpora for meeting data. However, there is no corpus for VTM. So in the VTM corpus, it can record, contain various meeting types, also different team compositions, where they're from, they rank the positions. And also, we can also compare different stages of VTM's life cycle, because the communicative behavior may be different when a virtual team is first formed, versus a more mature VTM with more trust and more established relationship between the participants. And finally, to provide an opportunity to compare studies between face-to-face meeting and also virtual team meetings to see how this context of virtualness may affect the communicative behaviors. Also, I think we should also look into multimodal analysis. The use of cameras and chats in VTM, especially nowadays when people have virtual team meetings, they mainly use Zoom, this kind of software. So they also employed multimodal resources. So I think this kind of multimodal resources can also be analyzed within the CAT strategies and framework. So thank you very much. I hope that I do not overrun too much.